Le Nissan Kick-Play 2025 a beaucoup de plus. Apple CarPlay intégré pour jouer vos tunes préférées, des fonctions avancées de sécurité, un rendement énergétique remarquable, puis même la petite odeur de char neuf qu'on aime tant. Tout ça en plus pour moins. Le Nissan Kick Play 2025 est le véhicule neuf le plus abordable au Québec. Achetez-le à partir de seulement 22 774 $, incluant un rabais à l'achat comptant de 2 600 $. Profitez de cette offre avantageuse chez votre concessionnaire dès maintenant. Jusqu'au 2 mars, des conditions s'appliquent. Détails chez Nissan.
Yes, indeed. Time for our daily look at all things transit, getting from point A to point B. We run the gamut on In Transit. Today, we tackle a subject like public transit and if it should be free. I did get a text message, by the way, on the text line at 514-800. I've taken the bus a few times in the past 7 days, and they are not checking if you have a pass at all. You're still required to enter by the back door. Driver doesn't ask for any proof or pass or tickets. So some people are still getting the free transit, but our next guest says, hey, everybody should get free public transit. Mathew Hayes joins me on the line, journalist and a Concordia University professor. Hi, Matt.
Hi, how are you?
I'm doing well. So let me ask you first off, your argument, and you published a piece in the Montreal Gazette and an opinion piece in the Gazette. I want to know your argument here for public transit. Is it does it matter if it's COVID times or not, or especially because of our particular challenges right now? Take me through your argument.
Well, especially because, but I argued this, of course, a few years ago, pre-COVID. David Suzuki has made the argument for decades that all public transit should be free and we should expand it exponentially, and I completely agree with him. It makes great environmental sense if we made public transit more user-friendly, if it was comfortable, not too crowded, more people would take it, and if it's free, so I mean that's really the environmental impact is huge. One of the great luxuries, one of the many luxuries of living in Montreal is that I don't have to own a car. I can get around by public transit because our metro system is really quite good. So I think the benefits would be incredible for all of us if we just maintain what we're doing now, which is just to make it free.
So, Mathew, I think the question that I have, and on this segment, the in-transit segment, I talk to people about public transit quite often. We've gone to experts around the world who've done studies on this. Now, you say free transit would get people to abandon their cars. But I look at public transit, and it's, what is a monthly? An Opus card is what, 80? Is it 82? I may be off a bit on the exact price right now, but it's very low already. So how much lower does it need to get that person to get out of their car? It seems already so enticing cost-wise if someone's got a $500 car payment and the $100 insurance payment and the gas and all that kind of stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I completely agree with you. I think that people like cars because they're convenient. In some cases, people have to have a car. I understand that. I'm not saying everyone has to give up their car. Some people just simply can't get around without one, and I understand that. I grew up in Edmonton where you really kind of had to have a car. The public transit system wasn't as good. But I think that's more of an argument to expand and invest more in public transit to make it more convenient. And also, this is a class issue because if a lot of poor people can't afford cars, they have to take public transit. And $82 might not sound like a lot, but to lower-income people it is actually a lot of money. Mm-hmm. So would be giving a break to people who have no choice but to take public transit. So yeah. I think it's in part helping lower-income people, easing their burden as well.
Yeah, so listen, I'll recognize that, of course, right? Like $82, whatever the cost of the Opus is, that is a large expense if you're someone who is, struggling just above the poverty line, let's say. But, to me, I'm sort of looking at that person that's working and how to entice them to ditch the car. Price clearly isn't the issue, so I don't know how it helps out. I don't know how it helps out with the public transit system if you're losing that funding all of a sudden of charging that person $82. Man, it just sounds like it's going to cost a lot of money.
It would, but the psychological impact is when something is free, people suddenly suddenly just has a sexier thing about it. When I can go and use it, it's not going to cost me anything. So people will be, I would hope, be more prone to use public transit. And that would mean we'd have to also, sometimes it gets crowded on public transit. You'd have to increase the numbers. You have to expand the lines, as I know the mayor has proposed. We do that, but that would also mean that if less people are taking their cars, that's less wear and tear on our roads. And think about how much money we're spending to fix the roads every year. Montreal, of course, was built long before the automobile was a thing. So the city isn't really equipped for the amount of traffic that burdens the roads. So the more people we can get using public transit, I think will be hugely beneficial. Also, I might also note in COVID, very few cases have been of COVID have been spread on public transit.
Yep.
If you wear masks, it's actually pretty safe.
Yeah, very, very true. We are not hearing that. We're not hearing stories about STM drivers. We're not hearing those stories. So there's got to be a reason for that. We're with Mathew Hayes, journalist and Concordia University professor. Just penned a piece in the Montreal Gazette. It is titled "Public Transit in Montreal Should Be Free." Very clear, very to the point. Mathew, I'm going to play a little devil's advocate here because I still remember I did an interview with someone from Europe. He lives in Europe and he studied public transit, particularly in France. And he was making the argument to me that public transit should be free, but not in big cities. Where public transit should be free is like places like, Drummondville and Trois-Rivières, medium to small size cities where everyone drives. You start a public transit and you make it free. All of a sudden you've shifted the paradigm and people are getting around town on public transit. In Montreal, in a big city, we got a great system. People use it. And by making it free, you're just draining so much funding for the system. Any thoughts on that?
Well, I think that's really interesting, and I know there are conflicting studies on this. Some places where they've made public transit free, they feel it's been effective. Other places they feel it's been less effective, and we're having to weigh costs and benefits, all these sorts of things. I do really believe that if COVID has made anything clear, there's a number of things that have become clear through this crisis, which is an omni crisis. It's really a multiple level crisis. Is that we have to really rethink what our economic priorities are, how we're taxing people. Rich people are not getting taxed enough, quite clearly. Wealthy people are getting wealthier. The top 1% or 0.01% are getting much wealthier, while a lot of people have lost their jobs and are threatened with eviction. I know it's much worse in the United States than here. I really do think an investment is something as sane as public transit really does make sense. And again, in this big city, we have many people who have to commute to long distances to work in low-wage jobs, and I think those people we should consider. They would really appreciate having free public transit. It makes sense for students who, with the rents that have skyrocketed in Montreal in the last 10 years, many of them have to live quite far away from campus. Makes sense for them. And it makes sense for low-wage workers who can't work from home. They have no choice but to get on public transit.
Matt, would you be willing to go along with a compromise position? Because you mentioned working poor. You mentioned students. I got a text message here about Kingston, Ontario, where public transit there free for all students. Of course, here we've got reduced fares for students. But couldn't we accomplish the same thing and keep more resources in the system if we targeted our approach? If we said, you know what, if you're a senior, if you're a student, if you're low income, well, every year at tax time, you get refunded or something like that. Wouldn't that be a better approach?
That's a start. That's not a bad start at all. I just like the idea of it being free for everyone. Mm-hmm. It makes it very egalitarian and makes it easy. And, we can maybe slap a tax on people who want to have cars. If they don't mind spending money having a car, then they can pay a little bit more, and we can put that into public transit. And that would further disincentivize people owning automobiles, which we know are a huge contributor to our carbon output.
Yeah. All right, Matt, we got to leave it there. It's garnering a lot of attention on our text line, by the way. So I encourage everyone to go check it out on the Montreal Gazette website. Public transit in Montreal should be free, penned by Mathew Hayes. Thanks so much.
Thank you.